Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first ever episode of the Griffin Report podcast. And when I was coming up with this idea, I had a few people in mind who I wanted to have with my first interview, but this guy just stands above the rest. He is the 25th president of Canisius College, replacing John J. Hurley effective this past July 1st. And he's also the youngest president in the college's history and first person of color to also lead the college in its 152-year history. Mr. Steve K. Stoute, thank you for joining me today. How are you?
Thanks so much, Griffin. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Delighted to be here. I am great. This is week 2 of the semester. Our students are back. There's so much energy and excitement on campus, so I'm in a good place.
Yeah, and has it kind of hit you yet that, okay, you're the president, like you are the top dog here? I know that has to be, obviously you've been very prominent in other places, but that has to be such a cool feeling for you.
It's a tremendous responsibility. One that I am grateful for, one that I'm excited about, and one that I take very seriously because it's about making the best possible education for you and your peers, and so that's important to me. It's important to me that Canisius continues to deliver on our promise to all of our students.
Right, and I've been fortunate enough to hear a little bit about your backstory and just us talking before this interview. But I feel like we have to get into some of your background first, before you got here to Canisius. So with that being said, it's just so interesting that you weren't even from here in the U.S. to begin with. Born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago, and you came here for school. You came here to be a member of the Seton Hall soccer team. What was that experience like for you? Did you always know that you wanted to come to the States and potentially go to an American institution, or how was that experience for you?
I think my parents knew before I did, right? So I'm the first in my family to go to college, but for them, education was a priority for all of us, for all of their kids. I'm the first of the 4 kids, and so education was a priority. But we all played sports. We all were involved in things that we were passionate about, and so that was one pathway to help make an American education accessible and attainable.
Gotcha.
And so they knew that, and I grew to learn that over time. I loved playing. I played multiple sports in high school. I loved competing. I loved being on teams, but there was no question ever that education would be the path forward. It so happened that I was a halfway decent soccer player, and that gave me the opportunity then to go to Seton Hall. But it really was about the education, right? It was a Catholic education. It was a good business school. It was proximity to New York City and internships and all of the things that come with an urban education. And they had a good Division I soccer team. So that was the cherry on top, really.
Yeah, right. So you get there in New Jersey, in Seton Hall, again, like you said, close proximity to New York City. What was that culture shock like for you? Obviously much different than being in the Caribbean. You're there in New Jersey. Yeah. Talk to me about that experience for you as a freshman and that huge transition for you.
Well, there are a couple of things that stuck out from my freshman year. So we talked so much about the freshman 15, right? Freshmen show up on campus and then they gain 15 pounds. I lost weight because I couldn't eat the food. Like it was just, I couldn't. My body wouldn't process it. And so I lost weight, which was really hard to try to compete in a physically demanding sport when your body is not doing what it's done my whole life. So that was hard for me. I didn't play my freshman year, and so it wouldn't have been safe for me to play. I couldn't perform at the level that I was used to. And the other thing that stuck out in terms of the culture shock was I'd never been through a winter.
Right.
And in the fall of 2000, winter of 2000, it was the worst winter New Jersey had for like a decade. And so I remember going home to Trinidad and I left maybe 2 feet of snow on the ground. And I said to my mom, I don't think I'm going back. And she said to me, straight face, and this is not unusual for Caribbean parents, but okay, well, you can't stay here. And so it became very clear that, all right, I guess I'm going back to school. And that was the last time until my senior year that I went home. My parents was like, okay, you don't need to come home, just stay there. push through it, fight through whatever obstacles are in your way, get done with school, and then you can come back as much as you want.
And it seems like it was obviously very good for you to go back there to Seton Hall, because I did some deep digging now. It was tough to find in the archives some of the prior to 2007 men's soccer at Seton Hall thing. I don't know why, but I dug
Hopefully
deep.
you got some good stats.
So I actually did. I couldn't find anything in terms of goals and things like that, but every year that you were in the program, you guys went to the NCAA tournament, ranked multiple times, playing great teams. But this is the one that really struck me, and I think that this holds a lot of value. You were the 2004 Seton Hall Male Scholar Athlete of the Year. So that just shows right there that athletics and academics were huge in your life. But what was that balance like for you to, again, know that I have an obligation in the classroom, on the field, and then also having a social life as well, being a college student? What was that balance like for you in your own circumstances?
Yeah, I think for me it was so important to be invested in the community, right? I think you've heard it, and our students here at Canisius have heard it. Right? You get out of this experience what you put into it. And so whether it was in the classroom or clubs or organizations or my team, like I worked so hard at being present and engaged and invested in the relationships on campus. Everything I did, I put all my energy into it. One, because that's how I was raised, but two, I understood that I would get so much more out of the experience if I sacrificed and pushed myself. And so it was the rigor of it. It was the discipline, which is one of the benefits of playing a team sport. Right. Just that discipline from a very young age. I understood that it takes time, it takes sacrifice. You put in the sweat, you put in the effort, and the benefits will be there. And for me, I think I remember my advisor would always say, just know where the line is, right? Don't take on too much, right? Because there is a point of diminishing returns, right? There is a point where you're stretching yourself too thin and you're not giving your best to every single endeavor. I may have towed that line once or twice, but never really blew through it. So I always felt grateful that I had the support and the people in my corner to say, okay, you can try this or try that. You can push yourself further here, but be mindful of what's important, and that is the academic piece. And so when I talk, I don't often talk about my my athletic experience at Seton Hall, but being Scholar Athlete of the Year is something I'm really proud of, because that's what it's about. It's being a scholar, it's a student, while also competing at a high level.
And that's what people always say, like, it's a student athlete, like that comes first. It is the academic piece for you. And in everybody's case, like that's something that people should strive for. It's maybe not always about being the MVP of the team or to get to that next level. That's very impressive stuff, and I'm glad that you had that experience. But talk to me now. So you graduate from Seton Hall Business Administration in your undergrad, and then you get the prestigious NCAA internship that opened doors for you. I know a little bit of background on what that experience is, but for the viewers at home, could you just tell me a little bit more about what that internship entails, and then just really how that kind of propelled you into potentially how you're here today?
Yeah, absolutely. So the postgraduate internship program at the NCAA is, probably, if you're interested in a career in college athletics in particular, it is the best opportunity you could possibly have to learn about the business of college sports. And so for me, that was something I learned so much from that experience. I learned so much from the relationships and the people. And so I remember having a chance to meet and spend time, like not just meet, but spend concerted time with President Miles Brand, who was president of the NCAA at the time, and he had been president at Indiana University before that, probably most famous for firing Bobby Knight.
Yeah, right.
And so I think for me and a generation of people, like Miles Brand was someone you knew because of his experience and what he brought to that role. And I remember sitting with him, all of us as an intern class, and there were 11 of us, sitting with him, and he just answered questions, and he spent time with us talking about how he saw not just the NCAA in college athletics, but the role of colleges and universities in our society and in our communities. Learned so much from that. And then again, interacting with athletic directors and conference commissioners, it began for me to make clear the role of not just college athletics, but the role of institutions in communities and in our society. So it was the start. Yeah, it was the start of something very exciting for me, and it really propelled me on the path to where I am today.
And then you didn't stop going to school after that. Then you you must have loved going to school.
I do.
Yeah.
I get to go to school every day.
Exactly.
Right. I come to Canisius every day. So
Yeah.
in some ways, I am coming to school every day.
Right. So then you go to University of Chapel Hill. Was that a sports exercise healthcare? That was what was your degree in there for your master's?
So my master's from North Carolina Chapel Hill is in exercise sports science.
Gotcha.
But a concentration was sports administration.
Okay.
So we had a couple of programs, again, small cohorts. So I had a class of 11 in the Postgraduate Internship program at the NCAA, and my class at North Carolina was 9.
Wow.
There were 9 of us. It's a pretty exclusive program to get into, very competitive, but we really became a family, and we pushed each other. Right? We got to know each other really well, but challenged each other. And I look around at my classmates now, and they're doing some pretty impressive things all around the country at institutions that are serving their students very well. And so I'm really proud of my classmates and what we've been able to accomplish, knowing where it started and how much time we spent together in some pretty close confines down there in Chapel Hill.
Yeah. And then even after that, then you go to Penn and get your doctorate. So it's just like you see the progression in yourself, and then once you kind of settle down in Philadelphia, and it's almost like you were on that sports track, but then it almost maybe got into higher education a little bit more. During that process, when did you realize that maybe higher education was the path that you were going to take?
Yeah, that's a good observation.
Yeah.
So when I was at North Carolina, I had an opportunity to serve on the Board of Regents at Seton Hall University, my alma mater. And the Board of Regents at Seton Hall is equivalent to our trustees. So they are the lay board that have the fiduciary obligation to govern the institution. And the trustees at Seton Hall are religious. They're bishops and priests in the Archdiocese of Newark. It's a diocesan institution. So that 3-year term on the Board of Regents, that's when it started to expand my horizons, that athletics is an important piece, but it's only one piece of the bigger institutional picture. And I sat on the academics committee and on the ethics committee and on the finance committee. So I began to learn what it takes to make a university successful, what it takes to make a university run and deliver on its mission. And that's when I started to think more broadly about my career. Because until then, you're absolutely right, I was on the path and my aspirations were to be an athletic director or a conference commissioner.
Yep.
And so after that 3-year term, so in 2008, this was just after, I just finished at North Carolina in 2007, had my first job out at the University of Southern California, out in Los Angeles. But then I started to think, okay, athletics is not the end all for me, and how do I continue to grow and develop in my career to make possible the opportunity to sit here today as president of Canisius College.
Yeah.
And that led me to Princeton, where I worked for 3 years, but ultimately to law school at Penn.
Mm-hmm. And then even going farther than that, your most recent stop at DePaul as well. And I know you loved your time in Chicago, and you had a very prominent position there as well. But when you see the position here at Canisius College, when that opened up and you saw that President Hurley was going to retire, what were your first initial reactions? Because again, both two Jesuit schools, you obviously probably had some type of knowledge of Canisius. Maybe you didn't. Now that you're shaking your head, you had no idea. What were those first initial reactions for you to apply for this position?
Yeah, so I think DePaul is one of 3 Vincentian universities in the tradition of St. Vincent de Paul. So DePaul our friends to the north here, Niagara, and St. John's University in Queens. And so it's a small universe of Vincentian universities in the U.S. There are 27 Jesuit universities and colleges in the U.S. So by comparison, right, and for me, and for I think so many people in higher education, being a Jesuit institution, that's a signifier of excellence, right? So my network and my mentors, we understand, and they express to me that it's difficult. It's one of 27.
Right.
So it's difficult to get a presidency of a Jesuit institution, particularly for someone like me who I don't have a history of being at Jesuit institutions. I've worked at great institutions where I've learned so much about leadership, about higher education, about service and delivering on Catholic mission, but not in the Jesuit context.
Gotcha.
So in some ways, I was hesitant. I thought it was an incredibly exciting opportunity. So much of what I aspired for myself in terms of leading was present here. And so urban education, we're in Buffalo. We are in Buffalo, right? And so again, I often say the seal of the college says the Canisius College of Buffalo. So it means something to be in an urban environment. I love urban education. There's something unique about it. Our connection to a city and a community. It's Division I. Like I am a former Division I student athlete. I think there's great benefit that comes from that. And so that was something that I was mindful of and attentive to. Our academic programs, our outcomes. Our students go on to do incredibly great things at very high rates in terms of success and placement in graduate schools and jobs. And so there's so much at Canisius that spoke to me in terms of the opportunity to be president here. I was pretty excited, but again, I was cautiously optimistic. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, it all worked out for you. It was a nationwide search, over 40 applicants, and you were chosen. And I think that really just shows not just your moral character and everything that Canisius sees in you, but it's also just a perfect match. Like when I think of somebody to lead the college in the next direction that we want to go and proceed, I feel like you are a perfect match for that. And I'm just so grateful for you not just to be here today talking with me, but also just here in general. And we see also a change now in Jesuit institutions and a lot of forceful change and having people of color like yourself lead institutions, but as well as women. And just talk to me about what that change is like for you to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself, bigger than not just the Jesuit institutions, like you said, the 27 of them, but to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's the responsibility, right? I talked about earlier. And I often say being president of Canisius College is not about me. It is about each and every student that comes to Canisius. It's about all of our alumni. It's about the community that we serve, the communities, right? Not only here in Buffalo, but all around the country and the world where our alumni are. That's what it means to be president of Canisius College. I am responsible to and for all of those people and how we continue to live in a way that's consistent with our mission, vision, values. And that's what it means to be a Catholic Jesuit urban institution, right? It is where leaders are made and how we, our students, our alums, and as an institution, how we live that every day. And so to see the changing face of leadership in Jesuit higher education, it means so much to me because I think it is an acknowledgement by our institutions, by our leaders, so the trustees who lead those institutions, an acknowledgement that the world around us is changing. Right. And if we, as institutions, are to meet this moment, meet this challenge, meet our students and our communities where they are, we, as institutions, have to change. And that starts at the very top. Right? And so if our leadership evolves in such a way that it reflects the shifting demographics in our society, the shifting values in any number of ways, then we are that much closer to living our values. We're that much closer to solving some of the major challenges of our times. Right. And so that's what educational institutions are meant to do. We are, yes, we're educating students, but we are here to help solve problems, solve big problems by creating, by forming, by transforming a new generation of leaders to do that.
And it's just so, and I talked to you about this a little bit before we did the interview, I just think it's fascinating how you're able to relate to such a diverse group of students now. You can see the student athletes and relate to them. You can see foreign exchange students or other foreign people that come here to Canisius that aren't from the US, but also of people of color as well. And then in each one of those distinct groups, you have some combinations of that. You have student athletes on our soccer teams that are not from here in America. Talk to me about what that means for you in terms of the significance of that, to be able for a student athlete, let's say, to be able to see you and be like, I can relate to that guy, because it's not really been that way in the past.
No, it's interesting, right? And something we talk so much about, and we hear so much about, and there's so much written about it now in the literature, is intersectionality, right? And so each person comes to us with so many different identities, and how they interact, overlap, intersect. It shapes who they are and shapes their experience. And for me, it is so important that I be able to connect with our students, connect with our alumni, connect in the community, because I want everyone who engages with me and interacts with me to know that I see them, and I value them, and I appreciate them, and I acknowledge the humanity in them, because that's right. That's Cura Personalis. That's 100%. What we talk about when we talk about our Jesuit values, and so being able to interact in a way that I can communicate empathy and understanding and support, because that's those are the things that we try to emphasize for our students. The world is getting smaller. We are a global society more and more every day, in spite of so many policies that want to force countries and nations inward. That's pushing against the trend of a more global society, a more human and universal society. And so how do we educate our students to work across those lines, right? Work across cultures, work across faiths and faith traditions, because that is where the solutions to the biggest problems that we face, environmental, social, economic, the solutions lie in those spaces where we're working across difference. And I think that is the power of a Canisius College education. And it's my obligation to live that and to walk in that way so that our students see that it's possible.
And that kind of leads me into my next question. As your first introductory press conference, you said that your goals for Canisius were to, quote, engage deeply with this community and gather more friends of Canisius. I will go anywhere and everywhere I am invited, so people will go to me and know what I care about and what I bring to Canisius. Now, that is more of a wide-scale goal of Canisius. This is an athletics podcast, so I do have to ask if you have any specific goals for our athletics. As, like you said before, we are now more of a global society where we can go all across, the globe and get athletes and have them come here, and not just have the ability that you had and to play a Division I sport, but also to get a transformative education. So if you have any. I don't know if you do have any that are more athletic specific, but as someone with that background, do you have any specific goals with our athletics?
I think, and I said this to the student athletes and coaches maybe 2 weeks ago now, when they were gathered in Montante at the start of the semester. The first is to represent the institution well. And so wherever they go, they wear the colors.
Right.
And so they are a visible representation of Canisius College. And to do that in a way that makes them proud, but also all of us, right? They represent the institution to people who may have no knowledge of Canisius College. And so they have a unique opportunity to be the flag bearers. And so do that, do it with integrity, do it well, make all of us proud, and I believe they do that. Second to that is have fun.
Yep.
Right? I think too much focus is placed on outcomes in college athletics. Yes, there are wins and losses, but I loved playing the game. I would not have done it if I didn't love it. And so there is a joy in doing things that you love. And we were talking about that earlier.
Yep.
I don't think that I come to work every day because I love what I do. And so there's a joy that I derive from showing up every day and giving my best for Canisius. And that's what I want for our student athletes and our coaches, to derive great joy in their pursuits on behalf of their teams and programs, but on behalf of the college. And if we do that and do it well, people will see that.
Right.
And people will be attracted to that. And the results will come, right? They're all of the things that I haven't said. Work hard, sacrifice, work for each other, be a team, be a collective. Those things are happening. I've met a number of our coaches and had great conversations. And I feel really good about the people in our athletics program who are leading our programs, because they are invested in the success of our students. And it goes back to where we started the conversation. At the end of the day, if our student athletes are coming to Canisius and getting a transformative education and graduating and going on to be successful, whatever their path is, then job well done.
Yep. Yeah, I like that a lot. And another thing that you said at Montante to the student athletes, and I remember you said this, was, if it wasn't for my time as a student athlete, I wouldn't be in the position I am today. Why is that for you?
There are things that you learn from competing in a sport at that level that you just don't learn anywhere else. And the details I didn't get into then. I had an injury and surgery that could have been career-ending. And I remember 3 weeks ago, I was with a group of students, and the question was asked, what was my cannonball moment, right, in the way of Ignatius? And I was non-weight bearing after surgery for 3 months, and took the semester off. And my doctors didn't think I would play again. So that was time spent just kind of reflecting on what am I called to do with my life? Really, what am I called to do with, if it is not playing? Right. That was my sophomore year. So I wanted to play. Yep. I was still at that age where I could make a go of playing soccer for a living. Yeah, it wasn't meant to be, but that was the moment where, for me, time to reflect. And so I think it is so critically important to keep in context that it is sport. It is something that you can care deeply about, but there are other lessons you learn from it. Resilience, how to come back, how to lose and lose gracefully, sportsmanship, and teamwork. I've said this, and you've probably heard this, nothing great is accomplished alone. Yep. It doesn't happen. You can look through history. No one has accomplished anything great alone. You must be able to work together with others. How do you do that? And for me, that's why I say, if it weren't for my athletics experience, my career would have been very different. And I don't think I would have had the opportunity to be president of Canisius College, because I learned so many valuable lessons, like teamwork, like resilience, through that athletics lens and that athletics experience.
And you talked about your one experience of when you had that injury and you almost had your wake-up moment of, okay, if I can't play this sport forever, because we all have dreams of, making it pro, and, I was there as well, and injuries derailed that as well, but I'm not sour about that at all.
I can't tell.
Anyway, in terms of when athletes are either done with their 4 years playing, or even if they come in here at Canisius and they played high school sports for forever, what do you have to see in students, or what advice do you have when it's time to hang them up and it's time to be done, that maybe higher education should be a look for more people, because you're seeing it's doing great for you, you've had great success in it, and I feel like it's getting to the point now where we see a lot of, now that COVID happened, we're seeing a lot of student athletes come back for their 5th years, and there's not a graduate assistantship for maybe something in athletics, and they're transitioning into higher education. So what would almost be your selling point to some student athletes of how higher education could be a good fit for them?
I think so much of higher education is what you live and experience being on a team, right? And so in that way, higher education is a legitimate career path, because you're working towards shared goals. You're working across difference and across units. There will be obstacles, there will be challenges, and we will unfortunately not succeed at everything we try, and so there's a need for resilience. It's hard work, but the benefits, right? When we accomplish our goals, we get to see that every year at commencement. And I can't wait for my first commencement, but there's nothing greater than knowing that you've impacted a student, because you've transformed their life by empowering them to succeed here. You've transformed their families' lives. You've transformed for generations, and you've transformed a community, because you've now put someone on a path to leading in a new and different way, right? In our way of proceeding. And so that's the power of higher education. And whether it's higher education or otherwise, I just think there's so many transferable skills that you don't often learn as a student athlete, right? Hopefully there are more people who are able to articulate, like, what do I learn? What am I learning as a student athlete? And how can I speak about that in an interview? How can I write about that on a resume? Because those things are valuable. Again, case in point, you could probably try to teach it, but it's easier if you can articulate having lived through it in a practical sense.
Yeah, I like that. And I'm just honored too to be a part of your first commencement as a senior this year. That would be pretty cool,
I know.
But now that we're wrapping up here shortly, I know you're a busy guy. The last question I have to ask. I did wear some J's today, because of you.
You did.
I know you're a big sneaker guy, but tell me, what's either your favorite Jordan or Nike or any other sneaker that you like to wear?
So I have a few. So the Jordan ones are classic.
Timeless.
And so you can't go wrong. The threes, I like the threes. The 13s.
Okay.
And there were a couple when he came back, when he came out of retirement, I was like, you know what, those are interesting, but I'm classics. I like the classics.
I like the classics.
So I was talking to a couple of students about that even a couple of weeks ago, and Yeezys and Kobe's, like, no.
I'm a Jordan guy.
Classic, I keep it simple in that way, but I do appreciate good shoe game. So well done today.
I have a lot left in the store. We might have to go back and forth. This might be our thing.
No, I only wear them on weekends. I can't wear them during the week.
You might just have to snap me pictures sometimes of your shoes that you're wearing.
I might do that on Instagram. I might do a walk through my closet on Instagram.
I like it. Well, again, President Stoute, thank you for coming on today. a great first interview, a great first episode, and I'm just thankful that I could have this experience today.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I look forward to spending more time with you this year and to your commencement.
Right.
I'm looking forward to it.